there is a certain group of people who think that gay people should only play gay people. I play Hades, Lord of the Underworld on the Disney Channel. I'm not really a Lord of the Underworld who steals souls, but I can pretend I am. I've had to learn that everybody's scared. Everybody's scared.
Okay, but some more than others.
Some more than others, but
this is like, wait till you go to a press event with me. You will see some more than others. Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik, and welcome to my breakdown. This is the place where we break things down so that you don't have to.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you, because you know she knows a thing or two. And now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.
Today, I'm very excited about today. Today we're gonna break down another human. Sometimes we do that. We just break down the whole human. We're going to break down Cheyenne Jackson, who is my work husband. He plays my love interest on Call Me Kat, the show that I am working on. But he's like a very famous person. He's been in, I think, 7 Broadway shows. For those of you who don't know, being in one Broadway show is an unbelievable feat. He also started quite late in the industry, 27. I mean, that's the age when many, many famous people OD. That's what that number is. But he started at 27 and has an unbelievable story. He goes from growing up for part of his childhood without electricity in a born-again Christian commune, essentially, knew he was gay from a very young age and got out of the 1,200-person town that he grew up in. Finally got to go to public school and just has had an amazing, amazing journey. And he talks about his sobriety. He talks about some aspects of his mental health struggles, which he said he's never spoken about before. It's really a lovely, you're wondering, who does she keep looking at? I forgot to introduce my co-pilot. If they were to give a Stanley Cup for awesomeness, this is the Canadian who'd get it. It's Jonathan Cohen.
Hello, Mayim.
Jonathan, why don't we do some housekeeping?
Let's do it. Oh, that's on me. That's right.
That was enthusiastic.
If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, because it helps us make more and it helps us help other people. And that's what really we're here to do. And if you are listening to the audio version, check out the video.
You're going to listen back to this and be like, why do I sound like I'm making announcements at a funeral?
I imagine that I'm actually a game show host.
No.
No?
I mean, for a very, very morose game show.
This is...
in Canada.
This is 300% excitement
That's
in Canadian.
Also true. Jonathan, do we have a website?
We have a website. You'll be able to find articles and related accoutrements there.
That's a French word because he's Canadian.
It's the only French I know. Bialikbreakdown.com.
BIALIK breakdown.com. Word of the day.
We have 2 words of the day that I'm going to let you choose which one you want to answer. The first word is recovery.
No.
It related to the episode. The second word is empath.
Okay, let's do recovery because it does relate to this episode. And I think that recovery obviously has a basic definition, like to recover from something, like you have a sickness and you recover from it. You get over it. But when we talk about kind of recovery with a capital R, what we're talking about is usually recovery from substance abuse, from alcohol abuse, typically from ingesting something.
Eating disorder recovery?
Yeah, it can be an eating, meaning, something that's involved with an inability to regulate, whether it's alcohol or food or drugs. And so we talk about being in recovery as living a life typically of sobriety, not dryness. There's a difference between being sober and being dry. People tend to use these words in 12-step programs. If you're sober, you're working a program, which means you're attending meetings, typically have a sponsor. People who are dry simply refrain from ingesting, but don't necessarily work a program of recovery. So that's sort of the uppercase recovery definition.
And people can be on a path of recovery.
Yeah, people talk about being on a path of recovery.
People talk about what their recovery includes. And that's not to say that there's an end destination. That's what I think is interesting. Like recovering from my foot injury is, I can walk now and I'm better.
There's a beginning, middle, and end. But for recovery, when people talk about 12-step recovery or recovery from addiction, it's typically a lifelong commitment to admit that the way that people in Alcoholics Anonymous tend to say it is that you'd like to believe you can drink like normal people, but you can't. Or you'd like to believe that you can use like other people, like, oh, have a little of this on the weekend. Yeah, usually people who are in recovery have committed to the fact that they will not be engaging in that kind of dance anymore, and that's their path of recovery.
And that's the word of the day.
Nothing we say is going to be as interesting as Cheyenne Jackson. So let's bring on Cheyenne Jackson. I adore this man. I really do. I got to kiss him at work, which is weird. Meaning like it's weird to kiss someone you're not dating, I think. But I'm also conservative that way. Plenty of people kiss people they're not dating all the time. They call it dating. Just kidding. Before we bring on Cheyenne, I'm going to read a little bit about him for those of you who may not know. Cheyenne is a Grammy-nominated actor, singer, and songwriter. That's impressive. It's impressive. He was most recently seen starring in HBO Max's 4-part LGBTQ plus docuseries Equal. He was in Saved by the Bell. He actually posted that on Instagram, I think today.
The reboot, not the
original. And Kenny Ortega's Netflix series, Julie and the Phantoms. He's also collaborated with Kenny Ortega, actually, who I've worked with. I should talk to him about that. He was in Descendants 3. So many things. American Horror Story. I didn't even realize that he was in multiple seasons of American Horror Story. He's been on Watchmen, worked with Lisa Silverstone. He was on 30 Rock. He's been on Glee.
Curb.
He's been on so many
Law
things.
and Order.
Oh, I also didn't know this. He was in the 2006 Academy Award nominated United 93, which I saw. I have to revisit it now. Behind the Candelabra. That's the Liberace one. Amazing things. Really, really amazing. He's also going to be in an upcoming feature, Werewolves Within. On and off Broadway, he has starred in The Performers, The Most Happy Fella, 8, Finian's Rainbow, which my father was in. I have pictures of my father in Finian's Rainbow, and my dad was like 13 years old, for which he received a Drama Desk nomination. He's been in Damn Yankees. Also got nominations for Xanadu, The Agony and the Agony, All Shook Up. That's the one where he played Elvis, and was in the premiere cast of Altar Boys, Aida, Thoroughly Modern Millie, On the 20th Century, and the 24-Hour Plays. I'm intimidated by him just based on his bio, but we're going to talk to him anyway. Let's welcome Cheyenne Jackson. Break it down. So exciting. This is Cheyenne Jackson. Hi. Thank you so much for talking with me. I think that you're the person I've spent the most time with, really, in the last month for sure. Not only are we working together, but we're working together in a way that, like, we don't really hang out with a lot of other people besides whoever lives in our home and then each other. So I think the other day we had a scene where we all got to hug, and it was like we all held the hug a little too long because it's so bizarre to get to be with each other as much as we do get to when we're not really hanging out with other people. So thank you for letting us do a case study, as I call it, of all things Cheyenne.
You're welcome.
Like, give us a little thumbnail sketch. Who was young Cheyenne? What were you like as you were growing up also?
Oh my gosh, where to start? I'm going to start at the beginning. I'm going to start at where it all began. I'm from a teeny little town, a mill town in northern Idaho called Old Town, Idaho. It's right on the border of Washington and Idaho. The Pend Oreille River runs through the two states. And
how tiny is tiny?
1,200 people.
Oh, that's like, everyone pretty much.
You know everyone. There's one blinking red light. I think they got a McDonald's a few years back, I heard. I'm sure it's wonderful for everyone. Very, very close to the Aryan Nation compound right outside of Coeur d'Alene. So it was a very white, very Christian, very Republican town. My parents were hippies and then became born-again Christians. So it was a very strange pendulum swing, but they kind of straddled both worlds. And we lived on 20 acres in the woods with no running water. And I had an outhouse. And we had 2 goats named Harmony and Melody. Because cow's milk I couldn't process. Probably still can't, but that's another conversation. And it was a really beautiful, bucolic way of life. And I have an older brother and a little sister and an older half brother that didn't live with us. So it was really just the five of us, the Jackson Five, that lived on this little land. And what was little Cheyenne like? Well, I think from the time I was 7, I knew that I was other. I knew that I was different in this little town. It was a football town, and that couldn't be further from who I am and what I was about. I loved going to yard sales, and I loved going to looking through other people's treasures. And I came upon a tape one day of, it said Billy, Ella, Lena, and Sarah. Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Lena Horne, Sarah Vaughan. I'd never heard of any of them, and my little brain exploded. It was a cassette tape. And I started listening to jazz music, and I started listening to, so my parents are very musical. I'll be jumping around because that's how my brain works these days. My mom was very musical, self-taught, beautiful singing voice, plays a little guitar. My dad, completely tone deaf, but loves all kinds of music. So there was always music playing in the house. That's one of my biggest memories. And it was early on, I was kind of pegged at our church for having a good singing voice. And so I thought, I think that'll be my thing. I was always a very self-conscious kid. I was really taller than everybody.
Were you tall and thin? Like, were you a tall, lanky kid?
Yeah, I was. Always a head above everybody else, but I was always very gentle. And so then somebody called me the gentle giant once, and I'm like, I don't like that. and so I just always had this feeling of standing out, but maybe not for the best reasons. I always kind of had anxiety about being in big groups of people, but when I would sing, kind of went away. Mm-hmm. So that would manifest later in life in other ways. But cut to, I would say about 12 or so, I'm pretty sure I'm gay. Our French teacher, Mrs. Henry, she came into class one day and she said, "You guys, there's this show called Les Miserables," French teacher, "and you're all going. It's in Spokane, Washington." I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of Broadway or Les Mis or anything, but I was super excited because we had to sign parent-teacher consent form because there were prostitutes in the show. And we were like, yes. And I remember sitting in the audience at 13 in Spokane, Washington, where I was born, by the way. It's about a 45-mile drive from where I was raised. And it started. And, you know, the I just thought I remember goosebumps over my body. And I saw these people up there and I thought, wait, what? That can be a job? That you could do that for a living? That is what I want to do. I don't know how that's going to happen, but it was as if something went off inside me, and I thought, oh, that's going to be my ticket out of this town. So that's how that all began, and there's a million things in between. But
it's such an amazing. I mean, it's an amazing story already. How did you get out? Did you get? I mean, you were there through high school. Did you have running water at any point?
Yeah. So my mom hates when I say that. She's like, we only didn't really have running water for 4 years. Like, that's still a long time.
With 3 kids.
No, we lived off the land. We had chickens and we had goats, and we grew potatoes, and it was really wonderful. And I remember a lot of really wonderful things about it. But as I started to feel so different and so other, I just knew that I needed to get out of this town. And there was nobody queer. There was one family of color. It wasn't where I needed to be. And I knew I wanted to get out. So I went to a private Christian school called House of the Lord Christian Academy. Yeah. And it was a church/school. So church and Jesus, and it was all wrapped up in school and all in the same building. One big building in the middle of this huge trailer park. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, but it's true. There was just trailers all around, and our church school, my whole life was there. I went to that till 8th grade. When I was in 8th grade, there was only one other kid in my class, and it was all independent study in the school. So you were sitting in cubicles, and we had a blue flag a little flag to raise and put in a little hole if we wanted a boy teacher to help us, and a little red flag to put in a little hole if we wanted a girl teacher to help us. The girl teachers were called monitors, and the boy teachers were called supervisors. It's a whole thing. And at 8th grade, I just thought, I can't be in this little. I was doing all of it. You only were supposed to do 4 pages in each subject a day, and I would be done by 10:30 in the morning. And if you were on good privilege, which they would put like a little placard up, if you were on E privilege, it was this little red E they would put in your cubicle. That means you could go to the E privilege room, which was like a hangout room. So we would just sit there and play foosball and I don't know, and just sit around all day. It was just I wasn't learning a lot. And also my older brother, Chris, who is now a pastor here in California, had shown a real talent in sports. He was a great runner, and he went to public school and really excelled. And, there was 75 kids in the class rather than 2. So my parents let me go to public school in 8th grade. And then I started singing in the choir. I also got on the track team and I was good at sports as well, and started to find a little niche for myself. Jesus and church and mission trips, all of that was really my 15, 16, and 17 year in high school. When I was that age, it took up most of my time. I went on 3 different mission trips to Mexico and would help dig ditches and help in orphanages and go door to door passing out Bibles. And it was something that was really hard for me because deep in my heart, I didn't believe in the things that I was talking about. I didn't believe it to be true. And it just didn't land for me like it did my brother. My brother was always loved the Lord. I was always his path. He was always a great speaker, always a great teacher. My church was big in speaking in tongues. And I remember at a Christian summer camp we went to, there was speaking in tongues night. And if you were screwed either way. This is how I look at it, because I never had spoken in tongues before, but this was the night. And if you got in this line and you helped the kids that hadn't yet.
Sorry, this sounds like a SNL sketch.
It's crazy, but it is true. And I remember I was in the line where I hadn't yet. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to get to the front of the line and something's going to have to come out of my mouth. And the pastors, they're laying on your hands and like, oh, and I'm like, I'm just gonna improv this and we'll see how this goes. And
did you sing something from Les Mis?
I mean, I should have. And I just made up something, and it was kind of in that moment and around that time where I thought I'm gonna have to really face the fact that I don't believe in Jesus like my family does, and I'm gonna have to really somehow I'm going to have to come to terms with that. And it really did on my 18th birthday, I had just graduated high school. And I turned 18. My birthday is July 12th, 1975. I was on my final mission trip, and I was secretly in love with, or had a crush on my youth pastor, this guy with big feet and a big nose from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And I went out, they got me a big blue birthday cake. I'm going to go deep here. Why not? They bought me a big birthday cake because it was my 18th birthday and I wasn't at home. And it was one of those really cheap, gross ones that you make your teeth blue. And there was a campfire, and all the kids were singing and praising Jesus and had their hands raised, and they were crying. I was looking at my friend Willow, who is one of my dear friends, actually named my daughter after her. Mm-hmm. And she was crying, and I remember seeing the tears coming down her face, and she like really truly believed in this. And I went out swimming. It was dark. The sun had already set. And this was like a strange beach in Mexico. You shouldn't be out beyond the reef. But I was kind of just figuring something out for myself. I was about to have some kind of major existential crisis. I didn't know it at the time, but I just felt the need to go swimming too far. And I've actually never talked about this except for my family. My heart's racing because I'm remembering what it felt like. So I was out there and it was dangerous, and I was getting further and further away from the beach, and I could see everybody. And I just remember thinking, I'm gay. I'm not a Christian. I want out. And the church is not going to accept me. And my brother is a perfect athlete, pastor. My little sister is this, a wonderful. I felt so different, and I felt so alone, and I felt so scared. And I had like I did a little dare to myself. I said, I'm just going to let myself sink right now in the water. And I don't know if it was as cognizant or aware as I'm saying now, but as I look back as a 45-year-old man, I look back at what was happening. I was just kind of giving myself an ultimatum. Like, if I survive this night in this water, I'm going to make some changes, and I'm going to come out, and I'm going to change my life. And if I don't, then I don't. And I let myself sink in the water, and it was cold and it was dark. And I just kind of remember feeling calm. And then I felt as if two hands yanked onto my shoulders and lift me out of this water. So much so that I thought someone was swimming with me. I was looking around like, what the hell? And I came out into the air, and I was gasping for breath. And I felt like I had been born again. Like they, in Christianity, you get baptized and you're born again. And I was baptized and did the whole thing. This was for real. This was, I'm supposed to be my authentic self. And from that second, I was never the same. And I came out to my family about 6 months later. The church kicked me out. It was devastating. My family and I had to really take a sabbatical from each other, because I had to allow them to mourn the loss of who they thought I was going to be and what I was going to be. And also, I just needed some space. So I went to Spokane, Washington.
The big city.
And the big city. I got into a gay youth group. I got on a gay volleyball team called Safe Sets. And it was then I started to find people like me, and a tribe of people like me. And then I heard about a thing called summer stock. And I had done some plays, and then I auditioned for this company in Coeur d'Alene. And I got in, and the first production was 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. And I think I slept with 5 out of the 7 brothers just to make sure. And it was as if like, this is where I'm supposed to be. These are my people. These are my weird, queer, Black circus folk. I felt so connected. And that set me on the path of really focusing on honing the talent that I had already been given.
Okay, so if we were to draw a line from that moment to here, we would have this kind of like perfect, polished, story, right? Of Cheyenne Jackson, who is, an incredibly diverse talent and has done how many Broadway shows?
I think 7.
F7. Okay, 7.
Yeah.
Like, that's unbelievable. And you have this singing presence. You have a family. You have a husband of our tribe. You have an Ashkenazi prince, and you have twins. And you're at 45. Still youthful and handsome and all of those things. But there's a lot in between. Which I had Leslie Jordan, who we're also working with.
Yes.
Having Leslie on made me realize like how important it is to tell our stories, and the whole purpose of this podcast for me and Jonathan was instead of, saying like, let's remove the stigma. We're actually trying to sort of clean up our little corner of removing the stigma by asking people, to talk about those things that we're usually told to hide and those things that we often feel shame about. And what those things are just us being human. And it's different for everyone. And there's not like a better or worse about it. You know, I come from the school of like terminal uniqueness where like I suffered the most. I promise. I want everyone to know how I suffered, and I'll talk about it all day, and I'll get to a book about it at some point.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Counseling.
I really wish that I could talk about the following things online: anxiety, depression. I need a therapist that will talk to me, a licensed therapist who can talk to me online about my sleep problems, trauma, anger, grief, self-esteem. Finding a therapist can be really hard, but BetterHelp is the way to go. You fill out a questionnaire, they assess your specific needs, and then they match you with a counselor in under 48 hours. If you don't like the one that they match you with, at no additional cost, they will match you with someone else. You can schedule secure sessions from the comfort of your own home. Everything's confidential. And you can join the 1 million plus people who have taken advantage of their mental health with a BetterHelp counselor. It's convenient. It's affordable. What can our listeners do, Jonathan?
Our listeners get 10% off their first month by using the discount code BREAK. That's BREAK. Get started today at betterhelp.com/break.
There is no shame in asking for help. Thank you, BetterHelp.
This episode is brought to you by ZipRecruiter.
You know, COVID-19 has changed our lives, and specifically has changed the way we do business. It's definitely changed how we run this business.
It is completely different. We used to hire people in person, and now we're finding everyone online. And there's no better way to find people online than ZipRecruiter.
Especially if you're hiring for brand new roles, because a lot of roles had to be created essentially in COVID-19. ZipRecruiter can help you make hiring faster and easier. When you post a job on ZipRecruiter, it gets sent out to over 100 top job boards with how many clicks, Jonathan?
Just one click. Then ZipRecruiter's powerful technology finds the right people with the right skills and the right experience exactly for your job and actively invites them to apply.
It's no wonder 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/break. That's ZipRecruiter.com/BREAK.
Let ZipRecruiter take finding qualified candidates off your plate so that you can focus on growing your business. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/break. ZipRecruiter.
The smartest way to hire. There are some other significant things, you know, between 18 and now that you have chosen to be public about.
Yeah.
Being a sober person is one of them. And, you know, that's something that kind of keeps coming round for me and Jonathan, just with people that we speak to. You know, we'll think that we're speaking to someone about depression, or we think we're speaking about this, but, you know, this other stuff surfaces. And I guess I would love to know when your dance with filling that God-shaped hole started.
Sure. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. It actually helps to put it into words, because it's been a minute since I've talked about what went down and how and why. So I started doing theater, and I was such a good kid all through school. I didn't have a drink of alcohol. I made sure that all my girlfriends were Mormon, so I wouldn't have to be pressured to have sex and you know, anything like above the blouse. I mean, I kept it
Kosher.
Kosher. So I was a good kid, and, you know, in quotes, and I didn't experiment with anything because it wasn't, you know, I wanted to make my parents proud. And at the time I wanted to make myself proud. Then when I got into theater, I mean, obviously what goes along with that is a bunch of partying and drinking. And I remember the first time I drank.
So wait, hold on. Let's stop you right there.
Sure.
So I was not a theater kid. Like, okay. I missed out on this part because I was in school plays and then started professionally acting at 11 and a half. So I've heard of this. What is this? Like, explain it for those of us who don't know. You're doing plays with people, and it's just like, that's just the social world?
Yeah. I mean, it's
okay.
it's like, I call them, it's like carnies. It's circus folk. It's these mishmash of self-described outcasts who come together to create these shows, and you're in these, disgusting little theaters, but to you it's just incredible, and you can't wait to get to rehearsal, and you run your lines all night, and you just everything is about, the performance and running it and just being the best and challenging yourself and each other. And then what goes along with it is a huge social aspect, because as soon as the curtain comes down, all the drinks come out and the shots come out. And I remember the first time I had a drink, I felt like I've always had anxiety. I can look back at home movies of myself at 13. A lot happened at 13. I grew 7 inches in one summer. And all of a sudden I was nearly the height I am now. I'm almost 6'4", and I was about 6'3". And I just was head above everybody. And so felt so awkward, because it was a football town. Like I said, they asked me to go and, come watch a football practice. And I remember taking my dad. I wrote a song about this once. I hadn't told my dad, obviously I was still in school. I hadn't told him I was gay. I didn't tell him until I was 19, but I came back after the summer break, and I had grown so much, and the football coach clocks it. And he's like, Jackson, look at you. You're a linebacker. Come on, let's go. I'm like, I don't know. No, it's not really. He's like, just come watch a practice. Just come watch a practice and see. And bring your dad. My dad was a cop. He was the undersheriff of Ponderay County. Drove us to school in his cop car. He wasn't supposed to, so we would have to hide in the back when he drove through town. The coolest, like Vietnam vet, bodybuilding, like manly man. Man of few words, but when he spoke, you definitely listened. And so my dad went to a practice with me, and he thought it would be a good thing because I didn't have a lot of guy friends. And I remember sitting on this bluff overlooking all the guys, playing football. And my dad and I aren't looking at each other, but we're feeling, the same energy. And it was so violent. They're just crashing into each other. And all I could think about was, what about my face? My mom always said, watch your face. But I was seriously grappling with how am I going to tell my dad that this is not for me? And I was just, my mouth was dry. It's dry right now thinking about it. And he put his hand on my knee without looking at me. And he said, Shiny. He called me Shiny. He said, Shiny, it's okay. You don't have to. And in that moment, I knew my dad got it, and he got me. And remarkably, when I came out at 19, he was the one that had the least problem with it. That was just a quick sidebar, but that is to indicate how much anxiety I had about feeling different. So when I took that first drink, I always describe it as my head being like sharp, jagged mountain peaks. And when I took that drink, it's like somebody poured yellow cake batter into the peaks, and it slowly went up, and it evened everything off. And I felt like, oh, there Cheyenne is. Oh, he's not the guy in the corner that can't talk to anyone. He's the guy that will talk to anybody. And he is interesting and interested. And I felt really in my own skin. The problem was, once I felt really in my skin, I wanted to keep feeling that feeling. And then I would start thinking about, when can I feel that again? And I would go into a bar ahead of my friend. I got a fake ID at 19 in Spokane. A lot happened in Spokane. Dempsey's Brass Rail. I was dating a guy who was straight, and we kind of looked alike. And he let me use his ID. And so I would go there and immediately go to the bar and ask for 2 shots, because one was for my friend who was going to be there in a minute, but they were both for me, just so I could feel like, okay, I can do this. So from 19 on, I had the idea that I wasn't enough, and I definitely wasn't okay in a social situation without having something. So this went on for, I always wanted to move to New York and be on Broadway, but I didn't go to college, and wasn't trained, and I couldn't just take the word of people that said like, oh, you should go to New York. So I just didn't. And I moved to Seattle for a boy, and we were together for a few years, and started working my way up into the Seattle theater scene. I became like the Seattle musical theater star, and I was in all these productions. And I was 27 at the time, and still was just, I worked at a magazine and in Seattle, and I worked as a bank teller for a little while, still doing theater at night.
I would
That
wait
was
in
my
line
thing.
for your row of the bank tellers.
I was
I would
really
skip the
fast.
other people.
That's why in our show, I can count money really fast at the till over there. I don't know if you noticed. But at 27, I still hadn't made it to New York. I still hadn't done anything. And two things happened. 9/11 happened and just obviously changed the way all of our lives are forever. And the idea that everything is so finite. And something more sad, my brother, my pastor brother, his little girl died. She was 3. And so it changed our family forever. And there was so much grief and so much pain. And I just thought, I do not want to be an old man thinking, why didn't I try? Why didn't I go to New York when I was young? Everybody says I should. Just do it.
And also, just for people who may not know this kind of world, like New York is sort of like the place you go when you have a certain level of ability, because that is where Broadway is. Like that's like, if you can make it there, you'll make it anywhere.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And it was the ultimate. And those two things, 9/11 and little Alexis, both of those just shook me to my core. And I thought, I'm going to make this happen. I was in a local production of The Prince and the Pauper. It was a new musical. It was terrible.
I love The Prince and the Pauper.
It's a great story, but this musical was not. And they would cast local stars, local theater, like names in the chorus, and they would cast the leads from New York. And all the leads came from New York. And there was this guy named Mark Kudish, who is a big Broadway star, still is. And I was cast as his understudy. And he said, he played Gaston in Les Mis or in Beauty and the Beast. And he's this big guy. And he looked at me, he's like, dude, if you ever come to New York, I'll hook you up. And I got an agent. And there was something about him that was just so sincere and not creepy. And I knew he was straight. And it was just something I thought, okay, I'm going to remember that. So once these two things happened and I wanted to make a decision, I had a boyfriend at the time. I said, listen, I want to move to New York. I want to give it a shot. And he said, go. I'll come when you get set up. I'll figure it out and we'll work it out and be together. And so I did. I moved to New York. I was staying in a shitty little apartment in Midtown Manhattan. I immediately called Mark Kudish and said, hey, remember me? So I'm here. Don't have pictures or headshots, but I'm raring to go. And he was like, great. Here's my number for my agent. Go in. I'll tell him about you. And the next 3 weeks of my life, this is what happened. I went in and I read for these guys and they signed me. I read and sang. And my very first audition, I got headshots taken, but I hadn't gotten them back. I just had the proof sheet, And my very first audition was for the first replacement and understudy in a show called Thoroughly Modern Millie. Mm-hmm. It had just won the Tony for Best Musical, and Sutton Foster had just won Best Actress. And they were looking for somebody who could be in the ensemble, tap dance, and also understudy Mark Kudish.
Wow.
Who is a low baritone, and this guy named Gavin Creel, who is a high tenor. From all of those years of listening to Elvis, Roy Orbison, but also Ella Fitzgerald, Lena Horne, the thing that has made my voice special is that I can sing really low and really high. There was also a patter song in it, and I've also been able to gesticulate and speak very clearly and quickly. One of my little talents, and that there was a patter song in the show. It was just a perfect storm of all the stuff that I was good at. You kind of needed to look young and you kind of needed to look old. And that's always been me. When I auditioned for The Sound of Music at 16 and they said, are you here to play the captain? I'm like, Rolf, I'm 16, but I just have a big old cowboy man face. And I'm like, I've always looked the way I look now, basically since I was 16. So I went into this audition and got the part. didn't know how to tap dance, but I told them, if you cast me, I will learn. I had so much confidence, and they thought my name was fake. They're like, I remember Michael Mayer said, Cheyenne Jackson, really? I'm like, yes, actually, I'm named after a TV show in the 50s. I can sing you the theme song if you need it. I really manifested that show to happen. I believed it was going to happen. I just had to kind of convince everybody else. But within 3 weeks of moving to New York, I was in a Broadway show. Mark didn't even know that I had auditioned for that and gotten it. He walked down the theater one night as they were like presenting me to the cast, and he was like, oh my God. And he was gracious and wonderful. And then 3 months later, he got a job at the opera. And so I got to be bumped up and do his part. And he'd been nominated for a Tony. So it was the universe, God, higher power, whatever, telling me that I was in the right place. And so I hit the ground running, and I just did show after show, and I did workshops, and I did.
Did the boy come?
He did follow me. Yes. We were together for 12 and a half years.
You were happily drinking during this time. What was your life like in terms of also a performer's lifestyle? And
I was super ambitious because I started late. 27 is considered kind of late to begin acting professionally. I wanted to hone my craft as much as I could. And I immediately, on every set or in every show, I become friends and would just gravitate toward the person with the most experience and just kind of get everything I could from them, because I didn't go to school, and I have this chip on my shoulder that I'm not smart enough and I'm not trained enough because I didn't go to school. But it ended up not being true, because here I was among the best of the best. My big break was I played Elvis in the Broadway musical All Shook Up, and there's a billboard of my face in Times Square, 5 stories tall. Drinking began to be the thing that was my release. I would never drink during work, ever, and never by myself. It was always a social thing. It was always just something. As soon as the show is over, you're on such a high, and it's New York City. Everybody just goes out afterwards. As my life started to get bigger and bigger, I needed a bigger release. And then drugs came into the picture, and I got into the gay scene, like you heard of like circuit parties, gay circuit parties, where it's like, a sea of like muscle guys with no shirt on, and the music's like for hours and hours and hours. So we would do ecstasy, and we would do all the party drugs. And that was just kind of my release from when I wasn't working. Mm-hmm. I did a play with Jane Krakowski and Sean Hayes. I did Damn Yankees, and Tina Fey came and saw the play to support Jane Krakowski. And she came backstage afterwards, and she said, I like your big Midwestern face and your comic timing. I hadn't done television yet. And she said, I have this part on 30 Rock. I'd like to gauge your interest. And I'm like, it's high. My interest is high, Tina. And so my first TV was 30 Rock, and they were at the height of their critical and commercial success. And I was well aware of what was just handed to me on a silver platter. So I just went right. Luckily, most of my stuff was with Alec Baldwin, who was so scary. But he was brilliant, a wonderful technician, and
intimidating, I think, more than scary.
Intimidating because he is a master at his craft.
He is effortless. Yeah.
He's effortless. They would give him 2 paragraphs, not unlike yourself, Mayim. You have the same thing. I've watched it happen. You'll be given 2 new huge things to say. And he would scan it and be like, okay. And you do the same kind of thing. I don't know do you have a photographic memory?
I have a visual memory. I don't like to call it photographic.
There's a chip in their brain.
There's a chip in my brain.
Well, whatever it is, it's amazing to see. I don't learn like that, but I would watch him, and I learned so much from him. And so that was my first television. That train started to chug along, but my drinking just started to get out of control. At one point, I was doing 30 Rock during the day, and then I was doing the revival of Finian's Rainbow on Broadway at night. They worked it to where I could work and then immediately run to the theater. And it was a crazy time. But I started to, my drink, I would get to the bar, and I wouldn't even be able to be focused with my friends and have fun with them. I would just be thinking like, when's the next round?
Yep.
Are we going to get more? are you going to finish that? I mean, I would be watching someone's drink like, oh my God, she's not even drinking it. It's sitting right there. It's so delicious. And look, she's not even watching. Look at her. She's just like looking around the room, taking sips. Like it became an obsession. And I had a few scary instances where I blacked out. I had a couple of overdoses. I ended up in the hospital. I've never talked about that, but I think it's important to be honest about. I started doing GHB, which is what a lot of people do. A lot of in the gay community at my time, there was a lot of that, and you can't have alcohol at all with it, and it's nearly impossible to dose. But of course,
we try
as an addict, we're like, I got this. So yeah, on 2 separate occasions, I woke up in the ER, and my friends just said, you just kind of fell asleep on the dance floor, and you were asking about your dad, and you didn't have a shirt on, and I'm like, oh, charming. So one too many instances like that. And then I actually met Sia, the Sia who we all know and love. I met her we were at a photo shoot together, and she was getting ready to go to rehab the next day. And I was really taken with her, and she with me, and we definitely had a great rapport. She had seen me in Xanadu, a play I did on Broadway. We kind of kept in touch, and I watched her life explode in the following like 6 to 10 months or so. And what we say in recovery is attraction rather than promotion. And you see something in someone else that you want. And I wanted that. I wanted peace. She had a peace that she didn't have before. And I did not have peace. I was in a marriage that was not great communication, and just not a great fit anymore. I got married. I'm talking about my ex-husband. It was just, my life had become unmanageable. And I said to Sia one day, I think I might. She's like, be an alcoholic? I'm like, yeah. She said, I was wondering when you were going to ask me about this. So she took me to my first meeting in New York on 52nd, I think. And I sat and cried through the whole meeting. I was going
to say, it's just, yeah.
Cried the whole meeting. She held me the whole time. And that was the beginning of it for me. It landed hard for me. And I realized, oh, this is where I need to be. That was 8 years ago.
Wow.
Actually, no, 8.5, because I had one slip up after my first 6 months of sobriety. I was shooting a movie in Europe and just lost my marbles for a night and thought, oh, I can do one more night, and then cut to. That is how my road took me here.
Here's a question, and this is a scary one, I think. I mean, it's the question. So if whatever it is, whether it's alcohol or sex or food or work or weed or whatever it is, if that's what's like filling in those jagged edges, right? If that's the cake batter, it's not that different also from if you go on, medication for suicidal depression or for anxiety, and you realize, oh, wait, there was something different in me, and this makes it doable. So the scary question is, who are we if we're not like filling it with cake batter, right? Like, was Cheyenne supposed to be this anxious, person? When we find sobriety, emotional sobriety or, whatever kind of sobriety, what we're saying is that we are learning something else besides that cake batter that allows us to both be who we're supposed to be while also being an acceptance of all the limitations we have that made us want to use in the first place, right?
Right.
The question is, who is Cheyenne really? Because that feeling of like, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be. I just have to be loaded to feel it. So who is Cheyenne really? And what do you use now? Like, what is it?
I mean, this is the $1 million question, right, Mayim? I mean, learning to love yourself. I have to do a quick callback to something, because I just said learning to love yourself in that same Christian church camp where we had the speaking in tongues. They also spent a weird amount of time talking about how terrible the song "The Greatest Love of All"
learning
by
to
Whitney
love yourself
Houston
is the greatest Love
right. And they said, no, it's not. It's Jesus.
Sure.
But I was thinking, I just remembered, that just reminded me of that. And it's just, it all makes sense.
I mean, God is another drug. That kind of God is another drug. 100%.
And learning to love myself with all of my imperfections and my insecurities has been my life's work, has been my biggest challenge. It's something I knew I would never, until I learned how to be with myself, sober, with myself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what does it look? Do you look in the mirror and you say, Cheyenne, I love you? What does it look like?
In early sobriety, it looked like as simple
looks like taking
as
your skin off and making you walk out in the world without skin.
Oh yeah, with raw, jagged edges. But it's at first, it's just the baby steps of being in, say, like a press event, like in our world, where you have to be
on display,
and it's this constant juxtaposition, because I'm also a vain person, somebody who wants to be looked at, but also I don't want to be looked at, because I'm also self-conscious, and it's like this pull. So the first big step for me was to be able to be in a public event, at a charity event or whatever, sober, and to be okay with it. Small talk with strangers, I would rather do anything else in the world. It just brings up so much of my own shit. But I've had to learn that everybody's scared. Everybody's scared.
Okay, but some more than others.
Some more than others. But
this is like, wait till you go to a press event with me. You will see some more than others.
I love it. Listen, seeing myself in other people, and seeing that, I love to think about somebody as huge and powerful physically as like The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I love to think of him not in a sexual way, but at night, he's like
Speak
a little
for
boy.
yourself, Cheyenne.
Right, I know. Well, okay. But I like to think of him, a huge, powerful man, like sleeping like a little boy in the fetal position, because at the end of the day, we're all the same, and we all have fears and anxieties and worries.
But some more than others still.
But some more than others still. True.
Some fetal positions are smaller than
some
others.
Fetal positions are more pathetic than others,
That's true. Some balls are more tightly wound.
That's right.
Oh my Lord. What I've had to embrace is, a daily practice of gratitude. I work a program, I have outreach, I have people I speak to, but for myself, I've had to learn to take care of myself. And that means eating right, that means exercising, that means meditation, although it's really hard for me, but it's something that I have to do every day, at least a little bit.
This episode is brought to you by THIRDLOVE.
You're not allowed to say anything about my bra.
Okay.
I took a quiz and I have a new bra.
Congratulations.
I've never taken a quiz like this. I've been fit for a lot of bras in my day. I have never taken a quiz like this that had so many questions that literally are the questions I've been waiting my whole life. I'm being totally serious for a bra company to ask me. But first, THIRDLOVE uses the measurements of millions of women to design bras with all-day comfort and support, and they stand behind their products. If you don't love it, you can exchange it and return it for free for 60 days. Every third bra has...
Tell me.
No comment. Signature memory foam cups, no slip straps, a scratch-free band, cups from sizes AA to I, including half cups. This should blow your mind if you're a female. Half cups. You'd think it was so easy to just either be a C or a D. It's not. Bands from sizes 30 to 48. The fitting room quiz, which I took, is fun. It's easy, it's interactive. It doesn't just ask you size, because I can measure. It asked me my breast shape, because you know what? It makes a difference, and THIRDLOVE knows it. It asks me about what issues I'm having with my current bra. I got issues with every bra that I've tried. And it also asks you your personal style, like what you like to wear, to deliver you bras and undies that are the perfect fit for you. Fit stylists are available for one-on-one chats. They can answer any of your questions. It's better than a traditional bra fitting, because you're not humiliated by some old lady picking and poking at you, which is usually what happens when you get fit, at least in the department store. The fitting room has helped 18 million women find their true bra size. You could be next. You should be next. THIRDLOVE creates better bras that focus on what matters, keeping you comfortable. From silky ombre mesh to lace that actually feels soft to their #1 rated 24/7 TM classic t-shirt bra, which is what I wear with all my t-shirts. Check out all the exclusive styles at thirdlove.com. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone. Right now, they're offering my listeners 20% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/breakdown to find your perfect fitting bra and get 20% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/breakdown for 20% off today. No comments, Jonathan.
This episode is brought to you by Postmates.
What?
This is exciting.
I love Postmates. It is really exclusively my favorite way to order food.
I can vouch for that. I've seen you Postmate.
My business manager has said, "What's with you and Postmates? Do you own stock in the company?"
And the answer is
I should. With Postmates, I can't even believe I get to read this copy. You get food delivered without leaving the house, without even opening your front door. With the current state of the world in mind, I select no contact delivery, so I don't have to interact with any human. I order from local restaurants. That's also a really special thing about Postmates. They feature local restaurants. Everything is left on my doorstep. The app lets me know when it's delivered. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to interact. I love it. They also have a pickup option, which I do sometimes use, like when I go to my mom's and eat in her backyard with her. I can do that. It's important to support and uplift our communities right now. What better way than with Postmates helping you order that food? Jonathan, is Postmates just burgers and sushi?
Postmates is not just burgers and sushi. You can order anything from toilet paper to phone chargers from stores like Walgreens, 7-Eleven, and Postmates will drop it off outside of your door. Just download Postmates for iOS or Android, find your favorite things, and get them whenever you want within the hour.
This is amazing. I hope that I get offered this too. Postmates is giving our listeners $5 off your first 5 orders for your first 7 days. I would order Postmates 4 times a day if you let me. To save $5 on your first 5 deliveries, download the app and use the code BREAKDOWN. That's code BREAKDOWN for $5 off your first 5 orders when you download the Postmates app or sign up online.
Anything you need, anytime you need it, Postmate
it. Is there God in your life? Is there a spiritual practice? Like, what's your higher power for you? I guess I'd be so curious. That's what you went through is its own kind of trauma, that kind of religious, meaning being excluded from a community that even though you had conflict about was your home. My mother was raised Orthodox, Jewish Orthodox, and was effectively excommunicated, and that happens, and it's its own trauma. So I wonder if you have just a distaste for that. You're an adjacent member of the tribe as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Well, the God's honest truth is I am working on it right now. Literally 2 weeks ago was the first time I've had a really honest conversation with my brother, my pastor brother, about the abuse. That's the only other word I have for it, because it was abuse in the church, in the school. They spanked us. It was, I can't even, as a dad now, I can't even imagine letting someone punish my children, let alone hit them, bend them over a man's knee. It's just like, it blows my mind. And that's the tip of the iceberg. The stuff in the church. And I don't blame my parents. They at the time, it's what they thought was the best thing for us. But I'm talking like as a 10-year-old, they were, because evangelicals and pro-life go hand in hand. So what they would do is they would take us to anti-abortion rallies. But I remember in Sunday school, they would show us videos of actual abortions and pictures of that as a 10-year-old. I remember this miniseries called Left Behind. I think it just got redone by Kirk Cameron recently. But it's about the rapture. And I remember being so terrified that I'm going to go into the living room or the kitchen and see my mom gone. Because that's what happens in this movie. The little kid goes out and his mom's making cookies, and then the blender is blending, but she's not there because she's been taken. But I haven't, because I'm the sinner. It was so much fear. Honestly, Mayim, 2 hours ago, I was in therapy with Jason. We're in couples counseling. that started a couple of years ago. And it's so wonderful to be able to talk your shit out. And I have a lot of trauma from the church that is still clearly, I mean, I'm getting triggered just talking about it.
And I was also going to say, this is not to say that all churches, I'm just like general disclaimer.
Yeah.
This is not to say all church. This is not to say all, this is a very, very, I mean, honestly, I didn't even know this about you. I was randomly guessing. But what I will say, and also something that Jonathan and I talk about a lot, it takes two things to make trauma. It takes a genetic predisposition and it takes an experience. And you can have two children, even from the same parents, right? So those are the most genetically alike people. They can have the same exact experience, but because of any differences in their template, you can have a completely different set of coping mechanisms, reactions. We've done an episode, on homosexuality. There's people have different wiring and different chemistry. It's going to react differently. And that's not to say that every person who's gay, if you put them in a, religious traumatic situation, we're allowed to be as different as fingerprints and snowflakes and all those things. But especially for a child who is sensitive, this is when people ask me like, well, can't I just hit my children a little bit? Here's what I say to them. You don't know what template you got. You can hope that they'll be okay and think that they deserved it and that it was for their greatest good. But it is never, ever comfortable for the person who loves and protects you to cause you fear, terror, and shame and pain. So some kids, will come out of it fine, and others will be devastated forever. So I think it's incredibly, brave of you. Also, I try and talk as much as I can, about therapy. My appointment is after I talk to you. I try and encourage that, and also encourage us to be astounded by a system of healthcare that leaves this kind of mental health care to the elite, and to the people. Obviously, suicide affects you no matter if you're wealthy or poor. Mental health affects you whether you're wealthy or poor. However, if resources are given preferentially, to people who can afford it, we don't have an equal system. So it's very, very, it's very brave. And I'm very grateful to you, even for sharing that you're in couples therapy. It shouldn't be something that's seen as a trend, or something for the Hollywood elite, which I consider you part of. But there's, to me, those are all the things. Like for me, that's self-care. That's part of my self-care.
It is. For us, for Jason and I, it is paramount. It helps us. We've been together coming up on 8 years, married 6, and we have 4-year-old twins, a boy and a girl. I knew that I wasn't, back in the day, luckily my ex-husband never wanted to have kids. So I just kind of thought, well, I'm not going to be a dad. But I knew intrinsically that I wasn't ready to have kids until I dealt with a lot of this shit. And I felt like I was ready. And then I met the person that I wanted to create a family with, and we are in it. We are in it to win it. And whatever that means. I want to just be conscious of everything. I'm going to make mistakes. He's going to make mistakes, but I want to just get out of their way. And they're both so incredible and complicated, and who they're going to be. They showed us right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Like Willow came out screaming, and Ethan was born in Call. And a lot of people
Fred
don't know,
was born
but
in Call. Yeah.
Really, yeah, it's very rare, and it was so
Imagine
beautiful.
Feeling it in your body. I'll tell you about it at work next week.
Touche. I mean, seeing him come out, for people that don't know what that means, but you're born with the sac still intact,
the membrane, as it were.
The membrane, yeah, and he was like, it was like he was a little alien child. We could see him before, and then the doctor gently tore it open, and then it was just beautiful. So. Yeah, I mean, therapy has helped us so much, and we have to be able to. There has to be no conversation that is off the table. We have to be able to talk about everything. And do we get into it? Of course we do. And pandemic, I mean, brought everything to the surface. I mean,
isn't it funny how it did that?
Oh my Lord! And so many of our friends, it really made them or broke them. And unfortunately, a few have broken because it's just brought to the surface all of the things that were like, ugh, and we could just go away. but now being stuck under our
Well, and I think a lot
under
of
our
people,
roofs.
not just couples, and that was sort of why this became my quarantine baby, this podcast, because for those of us who already knew we had challenges to our mental health, this was like, how about if we then put you in a house and you can't leave and you don't know what information to trust, even coming from the CDC, because it seems like when the White House speaks to them, they say completely the opposite 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
And then for people who thought they were okay, but the rest of us were like, one day you'll find out how messed up you are. Then you put
Yep.
them in a house by themselves, and it just like all, kind of came to a head. And that was literally when I sort of decided, like, I think this is this is what I want to dedicate. I mean, you know what hours I work with you.
I do.
This is the hours that I work when I'm not there. I did have kind of two last questions.
Yeah.
The first is something that came up when I spoke to Grace Helbig, who is a very popular online presence and YouTube personality. And part of her reason for embracing an online presence, she calls it comedy from home, is because of social anxiety. And she found a way to still get to be creative, but she gets to do it without having to go out and interact with people. But one of the things she talked about was being an attractive person and how people sometimes have a hard time understanding that attractive people struggle too. And you said something really interesting that, you didn't want people to look at you like you did want people to look at you. And, I have this fantasy that, like, if I was the female version of Cheyenne Jackson, like, everything would be fine. Like, I would be fine. I would feel great. I would not wake up and not want to look in the mirror. I'd want to be like, look at what I look like. That's amazing. I can wear anything in any store. Everything looks great on me. I will be the envy of other people. Not that I want people to envy, but meaning I won't constantly be the one wishing. So that's my, 10-year-old mind. When I first realized that I have a prominent nose, prominent chin, and didn't have, wasn't going to get breasts when everybody else did. What is that? Like, what is it for you? Because, it's not like, oh, pretty people hurt too. It's not even that. That's so, banal. But, the notion that it is so much more an inside job. But I think a lot of men would say, like, oh, this is, and I've actually joked with you about that and feel terrible about it. I constantly make amends to you. Like, I think I've already emailed you like twice since I've met you.
You're so great.
No, but I have made jokes about that when I've been like, oh, it's so hard to be 6'3" and male and white,
He's 6'4".
He's almost 6'4". It feels like 6'4" because I hunch all the time.
Well, they also give me boots there too. If you notice, I'm about 6'5".
Because if I looked like you, I'd wear boots. Okay, so just speak to that a little bit. In terms of like.
I'm happy to. I mean, this is a subject that brings me a lot of consternation and has for a long time. I was aware of the impact of what I looked like on people very early. My brother was voted most handsome in school. My mom would constantly tell us how beautiful we were, our beautiful bone structure, your beautiful eyes. You hear something enough to where you think like, oh, that's what I have. That's my thing. I learned quickly that was not all I had to offer, but I became a little bit too focused on that because I felt like, well, number one, I knew that it would get me in the door of certain places, but I also felt like I had to be extra prepared, do my job extra great. So it wasn't just like, oh, he got in because of what he looks like. I had to do all the stuff and be super on time. And I have a really good work ethic. And I think it was a lot from having to try to prove myself that I was more than a face. But I also have major, we can talk about that another time, but I have major image issues and body issues. And I think so many people do. I'm talking to more and more men in particular who, I came out, it sounds silly, but I came out about having had hair transplants about 6 months ago on my Instagram because
That's right. It was right when, I think it was right after we hired you.
Yeah.
And I was
it
like,
was.
I couldn't tell. I don't care.
Well, it's so funny because it's so funny you say that, because I thought, oh shit, like I just like there's this image that people have of you, but part of me, I had so much fear and anxiety. My brother, he lost his hair and he just shaved it off, and he looks like Kelly Slater, the surfer. Like he's gorgeous and has, great skin. But I was playing leading men and on Broadway, and in my mind, I needed hair. So I had 5 hair transplants, and it was painful and it was expensive, and I hid them. And every new job I would immediately go to the hair and makeup trailer, and I would close the doors and be like, you guys, I have to tell you a secret. And I would always lay it out like it's this big fucking thing. Like, I'm going to need so much. Listen, I have hair transplants. And they're all like, hair and makeup people. They're like, okay, so what do you need? Some topics, and we'll do a little. I'm like, oh, it was always a way bigger deal for me. So yeah, during COVID, when everyone was giving themselves haircuts, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buzz my hair. And then I have this massive scar on the back of my head. And I just thought, I just want to be free of this. And so I posted about it. It kind of became a thing. And some of it was negative because it looked like,
you can't win. You cannot win.
No, my intentions were pure to like shine a light on something and I have heard from thousands, I am not exaggerating, thousands of people, mostly men, many of whom we know, who have been like, thank you for talking about it. No one talks about it. So that I bring this up because it's part and parcel.
Why are you imitating my voice, bro? Why are you doing it?
I bring it up because it's all germane to, the image and what you feel like you have to put out there, and that, you are not your face. And so I try to that's actually what I really love about this character on the show that we're creating, Max. He sees people for what they really look like. And I have tried to embrace that in my own life, to see people's true selves and true inner beauty, because some of the ugliest people I know are technically the most beautiful.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
If you ain't right.
It's not simply attractiveness. There's a lot of people who other people think are attractive who I don't. There's something about your personality that when you opened your mouth and when you read these lines, I was like, we were literally, this character was written to be the perfect man. The perfect man, meaning he's handsome, he's charming, he's sexy, he's funny, and he's quirky. And when you open your mouth, I was like, that we found Max. Like, we found this character. And then someone was like, he's gay. I was like, no, he's not. They were like, yes, he is. I said, if he is, it doesn't even matter. For me, there is not confusion about your character and how you are able to present in this character. And there's been so much conversation about who can play what part.
Right,
and, which way can this go? And, I've been asked to speak, I spoke at USC about this, like, why do non-Jews play Jews? And can Jews play non-Jews? And as my kids say, every character I play is Jewish because it's me. But some people seem more Jewish than others, right? You have to wear so many hats. You have to wear even more hats because you have an entire identity that is you as a gay person. That's who you are. I would argue, it's who you've always been. It's who you're supposed to be. But also, you get to play this part. Like, do you think about it? Does the gay community think? Okay, so I want to know what you think about it.
I have a lot to unpack here, and let's just do it. Okay. First of all, I don't know if you know this, but
you're really not gay. You're in love with me.
Right.
And we're gonna get married. Okay.
Actually, I've actually never. I was talking to Leslie. So he's been with a woman. I haven't.
Right.
So that's how gay
First
I am.
time for everything.
First time for everything. I always knew what I liked, what I was, who I was. When this part came around, when the audition came around, I took myself out of the running. It came to me and I thought, they're not going to cast me in that. I would, that's my dream. My dream is to be on something well-written, a multicam. I was coming off of long hours on American Horror Story, and I wanted something light and bright and joyful. And opposite you, I've told you privately what you've meant to me in my life. So like, it was too much for my little brain. I was like, I don't want to put myself through this pain of being in, like going testing and things. If it's not So I initially, even though I loved it and thought, I just said, they're not going to cast me in this. And my agent was like, go on the audition. You're perfect for it. And I was like, okay, great. I will, yes, I will take a look at this again. I will get into this again. I will open.
So why do you think we wouldn't cast? Like, what was it? Like, was there one thing?
In my experience, my friends and I, who are openly gay in the industry, and people that aren't even in the industry, but just we all have an internalized homophobia. And the first time I noticed mine was when I would meet somebody in my early 20s, and halfway through a conversation, they would say, "Oh, I didn't know you were gay." And something inside me would be like, oh, it made me feel good.
Passing.
Like I passed. I got away with something. And then I started to think, what the hell is that about? Why would that be a good thing? Whereas I am very attracted to feminine men. My husband loves he does drag sometimes. He's beautiful. He's himself. I love that. That's what I'm attracted to. But in myself, I'm always super hypercritical. And as somebody who has often played leading men opposite women, when I made the transition to television, there weren't a lot of us. You know, Jim hadn't come out yet. Jim Parsons, Neil Patrick Harris hadn't come out yet. It was slim pickings. And so I often, to save myself pain, would just be like, less and less. But then when this came, I just thought, I don't, it wasn't, it was very early stages when I was like, they're not going to cast me in that. I mean, it's a huge major Fox show and it's a network. And then I was in Washington, D.C. singing. And my manager said, Darlene Hunt would like to talk to you. And that had never happened to me before. A show creator calling me prior to an initial read. And I thought, oh, they're seriously considering me for this. So
it was actually my former manager who first brought up your name. It was my
really?
former manager, yeah, who put your name in front of us.
So that was the fire that was lit in me, and I thought, well, there's obviously some real interest. So this is my dream scenario. So don't take yourself out of it. You've been brave before, be brave again. So I worked so hard on this read. I was staying with my friends in New York, and for hours, I wanted to kind of embody who this person was. I knew it. I felt it. It was like, and sometimes when things feel really good, it doesn't go the way you think it is, but
sure.
Because there's so much at stake. But I remember you were in LA, I was in New York.
Right. We did it on a Zoom, I think, or some sort of video chat. This was before COVID.
Yeah. And it was the initial read. And I felt prepared. I felt open, and I did the thing. And you were kind of in the background. And then I didn't see you. And then you came across and you just did 2 thumbs up, and then you got out of frame. And then we had the test. And again, I got butterflies when you walked by.
Oh, I have to say, like, that was the most fun, was getting to show you off, to the executives, because every woman in the room and a few of the men were like, what just happened? Who's that man? What was that? Like, but like I told you, like, it's your energy, like, it's your smile, it's your energy. And so many guys didn't know how to play this. It's like, they don't know how to be a man, like how to be a funny and a gentle and like sexy, but also not like weird. It was just, you nailed it.
It has been a dream. It truly has been a dream come true. And I felt the connection between you and I in the room. And I knew that, yeah, and I knew it was going to be the most fun. And it is. Interestingly, I've gotten some messages and such on social media from people in the gay community who have a problem with me playing this part. And
yeah,
it's very fascinating to me. I understand it. There is a certain group of people who think that gay people should only play gay people.
It's
fascinating. And there's a prominent gay actor just came out, Wentworth Miller, who said he only wants to play gay people. And great, if that's what you'd like to do. I have never put myself in a box. And I am certainly not going to let anyone else put me in a box.
I love that.
I play Hades, Lord of the Underworld on the Disney Channel. I'm not really a Lord of the Underworld who steals souls, but I can pretend I am. And this is a bigger thing. This is actually a good thing that I'm playing this part.
I would agree.
This is an important thing. And the fact that you guys, I'm sure there were discussions about it. I'm sure people were like, well, how gay is he? And what is his, like, there's a definitely, it's a sensitive area, and I respect it. I understand. And I applaud.
I mean, I love our whole cast also because, you know, you and Leslie are both, you know, gay and fabulous. And, you know, we have Julian and Kyla who like also, we got to know them in the middle of Black Lives Matter and just learning about them and their lives. And, you know, I love that Swoozie, as the white female, the wasp, is the minority. You know, she is outnumbered by our queerness and our, you know, otherness. And it's just super awesome. And we have a very good time, not just because we have to, because we have no one else to interact with. But yeah, we're also making a show about really unusual people. These are people who are more like the people I hang out with, I think, than the Big Bang Theory. So it's really, I don't want to take up more of your time, but I thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Mayim, for having me here, letting me tell this story. You know, you're only as sick as your secrets. And the more secrets I let out and the more I talk about my anxieties and my fears and my feeling weird, you know, it lessens that. Yeah.
Super awesome. All right. Shabbat shalom.
All right. See you guys.
I like his big Midwestern face.
I like his big Midwestern face too. Cowboy face.
That's what she said.
Who is in a play and then Tina Fey sees you and is like, here, you want to do, like, that's an unbelievable story.
I would like to gauge your interest.
High. It's very high.
Tina?
He's very funny.
High.
He's also, you know, it's funny because he seems very confident. I mean, I can't imagine you being the only person that tall who doesn't always seem so confident.
I'm shorter than he is.
You feel about his height to me.
I don't think feeling is how you measure height.
Yes, everyone's height is determined by how I feel. Is that the clinical diagnosis of some sort? No, but he looks so confident. Like he's a big guy. Like he's got big hands. He's like a big guy. And he definitely has like a cowboy ranch kind of feel.
Is it wrong to say that?
Yes, whatever you're about to say is wrong.
If Max was written as the perfect man, it doesn't seem incongruous that it takes a gay guy to play him properly.
Wow, I think we should probably cut that out. When I said that we wanted this character to be a perfect man, I didn't mean that it's because he's gay and there's something about that. It is a woman's fantasy of a man who he's not feminine. He's not overly like he's a dude. But what I mean is that you don't have to choose with him. You know, you don't have to choose, do I want the guy who looks great and is that, you know, kind of like physical package of like being on his arm? Do I have to choose between that and smart and funny? You know, and I think that as our culture has gotten in many ways more misogynistic, it's hurt men too, you know, and we've set up this kind of dichotomy also for men where there is this notion of like, are you this guy or are you that guy? Which, you know, had previously been reserved for women. Like, are you attractive or are you smart? So I think that that's really what Darlene wrote when she wrote Max. And we had so much trouble finding this guy. And I kept saying, I'm looking for someone rugged. There's a lot of very, very attractive men who are actors. And they're very good actors. But I kept saying, I want someone rugged, like someone who looks like a Midwest, you know, cowboy. We found him.
Another thing that he was talking about is, and just felt so powerful, is that conflict between the family community beliefs and the personal, and how you're wedged in between those seems like an impossible position. And to see his transition out of that to finding his place is so beautiful.
That story in Mexico. And I mean, just also he's, you know, it takes someone who's been in a lot of therapy and a lot of recovery to be able to describe his experience the way he did. He had so many mind-body experiences that he described. He described feeling that like tension in his chest, even recounting the story. honestly, I do think that is because he's a very specific kind of performer. And this is the thing, I am not that kind of performer. Like, I can sing a little bit, I can dance a little bit, like I'm an actor. This is a man who can hold a stage with hundreds of people singing with a booming, beautiful voice. Also, so humble to be like, oh, because of the music I listen to, I can sing baritone and tenor. No, honey, that's because you're born with a gift. He was born with a gift. Even his speaking voice is well trained.
Yeah.
Like he said, like he can't speak. I mean, he does all the things that I'm supposed to do that I don't. But we had the last episode we filmed, we had to be shouting over the rooftops of Louisville, and when I shouted, you could tell, like I could only do a couple takes before my ENT would be like, Mayim, I can feel across the city that you're gonna blow out your vocal cords. And when he does his yelling, it's like, it sounds like he could do that forever because he has a trained voice and knows how to use it.
And you two sing together actually on a few episodes.
We do sing together. We do a karaoke episode, and he also super humble. Like he also is a piano player, and he let me play the piano for our karaoke numbers. But singing with someone like that, and he's so sweet. Like even when I clearly did a terrible take, he'd be like, "It sounds great. I really think it was a good take."
So he lied to you.
He lies,
like a good husband.
No, but what I mean, no, he's supportive of our process, as a team, and we also got to do a special effects where we were flying on a green screen, and we got to be in these harnesses, and just like so much fun, and we've been really having a good time, and it's true, we definitely have a connection. We have a lot in common, and we're we're very similar in some really sweet ways. And yeah, I think he's a really inspiring person. He's also, very public. I mean, not like super public with his kids, but like he posted a picture on Thanksgiving that he's got like a makes your heart melt smile with his husband and their kids. Like, it's just like, it's lovely. And he works his butt off for that. Like to say, like, sure, I want them to have that forever, but even to be 8 years in, like, it's really powerful. Anyway, I have nothing else to say because he said it all, and he's a lovely, lovely human. And I'm so grateful that he and that Leslie shared, and that we're going to have our other members of our cast come and share aspects of their experience. Before we go, let's do Ask Mayim Anything. Ask me anything, Jonathan. Ask Mayim anything. Yeah. Jonathan, I think for today's Ask Mayim Anything, we have, I believe, our first audio recording.
We do have an audio recording.
And she has an accent.
Very exciting. Let's play it now and hear what Mayim has to say.
Hi, Mayim. Rose here.
Rose.
I have a question about ADD, or adult attention deficit disorder. I was diagnosed late as an adult when seeking support for my anxiety. I was told my anxiety stemmed from issues with concentration caused by ADD, and that as someone who's essentially high functioning, all I needed was some meds to keep me focused. I left the doctor thinking that concentration issues were all ADD did. Surprised, turns out it was not the case, and that there's so much more to ADD than I ever imagined, and that it impacts not only anxiety, but many other delightful personality traits. My question is, why do you think adult ADD is so poorly understood and discussed? What are the ways in which it can impact a person more broadly, and how can it be treated successfully?
Adult ADD is one of those like unhappy surprises. It's like if you don't like a jelly donut and you bite into it and you thought it wouldn't have jelly inside. It's like, oh, that's kind of what adult diagnosed ADD is. I think in many cases it was there when we were younger. It's really only with our more modern and current understanding of what that diagnosis means that we can put it on people. So I'm a person who many would never think I would meet this kind of diagnosis. But as I told you when we started, I've got just about everything there is in one way or another. The reason that it's so poorly misunderstood is that it's very hard to tell the difference between it and other things because we are a spectrum of chemicals and experiences. I have a very difficult time going to the supermarket. And it's gotten worse as I have gotten older. Definitely got worse after my significant car accident, which I, had several years of recovery and multiple surgeries for, it definitely has gotten worse. I thought it was because, I'm kind of the opposite of Rose. I thought it was because I'm anxious. I'm socially anxious. I don't want to deal with people. And like, and then I became famous and like that makes it harder. No. With more examination and more working this through, specifically in talk therapy, I have a set of physical sensations that overcome me when I am in a situation where there's too much stimulus. By definition, we put ADD on that because what it is it's the inability to filter appropriately. So I am a person who has a doctorate. I'm a person who learns 50 pages of a script every week. I vaguely run a household. I do many things, but many things are hard for me. Filling out forms, fascinatingly difficult for me. Does it mean I can't do it? No, but it means that it sometimes makes me cry and I never knew why. I didn't know why. And I only found out, I think after my father died, that he had the same thing. And he would act like he knew a lot of things because he didn't want to have to read the form and the thing. And, I dealt with a lot of paperwork after he died that I realized he was limited. Like, it wasn't just that he was lazy or that he, incompetent or stupid. We have this thing. So improperly diagnosed, misdiagnosed, because it does look like a lot of other things. And many of us compensate. We do. We compensate. We get a friend to help, or we've learned tricks. We've learned tools. Sometimes I have to pretend things are like a game, and like it's literally just like a shift of the lens, and then I can try and tackle it.
I try to go to smaller grocery stores.
So the way that I get around it, I go to smaller grocery stores, or I only go to one grocery store where I always know everything that's going to happen there. And I go at odd times. I mean, my children know. Like, we will sometimes go, like when they were younger and I couldn't leave them at home, it's like, it's 7 a.m., put your shoes on, you're going in your PJs. This is the only time I will go to the supermarket. If you'd like to eat, get in the car. So yes, we compensate. So that's part of it. The second thing that Rose asked was, how does it manifest? So yeah, it'll look like that. I'm literally speaking from my experience. It'll look like, I don't like malls. Certain lights I'm also light sensitive. All the things. But for
Which
me,
is not necessarily related to ADD.
It's not necessarily related to ADD, but the sensations that I feel when I'm in a crowded place, like a flea market, something like that, I cannot filter. And if there's weird lights or a lot of music playing, forget it. Forget it. Fred had this, my little one, when we took him to New York for the first time. He was of walking age, and the first time we put him down to like cross the street, he stopped. The child stopped moving, and we're like, what is wrong with him? The amount of sound coming in. I don't know that this child has ADD. That's not what I'm saying, but there's a filtering thing that I clearly passed on to him. So it can look like those things. And what Rose was describing is certain things that she may have thought were ADD actually could come from
anxiety.
An anxiety diagnosis too.
And anxiety and ADD can really represent two sides of a similar
Correct,
coin.
but I never thought of it like I never thought of it like that.
I had an aunt who got diagnosed with adult ADD, and she tried taking her child's ADD medication, which we are not recommending.
No.
But
no.
she was like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah, that's so what people report, and with people with more severe features of ADD do report that a little bit, it's a stimulant because it forces you to focus better. People do report things like, oh my God, is this what it's like for other people? It's kind of like my father didn't know he needed glasses, I think, till he was like 18 or something. And he said it was like, what's happening? Like, I thought it was supposed to look like that. That's what people do report. However, it is a very strong drug. It is a drug with a lot of side effects, especially for little ones. It messes, which is also attractive to certain people, it messes with your appetite. It is not an insignificant drug. You should not take anyone else's medication. I'm just going to say that. What can be done? Yes, medication is one thing. Depending on the severity, many people do kind of live. And it's just it becomes one of our quirks and one of our challenges. And there are other resources, and we can list those on the website.
There's medication, of course. There's also just coping mechanisms, like you
Correct.
said, where if you know that going to the grocery store at 12 is going to be horrible.
Those aren't coping mechanisms. Those are workarounds,
What the difference being?
A coping mechanism is a system that is put in place with a kind of set of compensatory behaviors, as opposed to avoiding the issue altogether and just going when it's quiet.
I don't know. To me, let's have a vote online on this one.
No, but what I'm saying is like, there are not always options to not go.
For sure.
So for me, I need to have coping mechanisms for when I do need to go to Disneyland with my children. It is often painful. I have wept more than once at Disneyland simply from overwhelm. So the things that I get to do are know that I need to take breaks, know that I need to control what I can.
Have a list of where you're going?
Sometimes, but my ex-husband, he's like an expert. He's got like a thing, and he's got all these clauses for what he does if something's not. That's not my thing. But
that's not the reason you're not together.
That's not the reason we're not together. No, but for me, knowing that I don't need to participate in every single ride, every single experience. I have found myself sitting alone at It's a Small World sometimes because there is a quiet little nook there before you get to Looney Tunes, and I don't need to participate in everything because I get overwhelmed, and that's okay.
Rose, thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Rose.
For anyone else who wants to ask Mayim anything, go to bialikbreakdown.com.
That's BIALIK. Breakdown.com. We do everything together, even say the name of our website. From my breakdown to the one that I hope you never have, and to the one that you might think I'm gonna have when I turn my back on this camera, we'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or two. One fiction, and now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.